We'll keep doing sports. Let's do sports since we're on the sporting section of the show. Do have some sad news to bring to you. Man was a legend, so we need to talk about him, not just in wrestling but in politics. If you don't know who Antonio Inoki is, even if you're not a wrestling fan, this is a amazing story, very interesting that you're going to want to hear. Antonio Inoki, and like not just wrestling, famed combat sports trailblazer, because in Japan there's a little more of a blurred line between MMA and wrestling, and Antonio Inoki did both, the precursor to what we now know as MMA. Antonio Inoki, a combat sports trailblazer, influential politician, and larger-than-life figure in his native Japan, died Friday at the age of 79. Mox, that is pretty good for a pro wrestler, especially one who was as active as he was. I don't know when he actually retired or if he ever did retire. Here's a pretty recent picture of him. He had fallen into ill health recently. The cause of Inoki's death was not released, but he had fallen ill in recent years and was relegated to a wheelchair. Inoki retired from politics in 2019, though he touched many parts of Japanese culture in his lifetime and became one of the most famous people in the country. Inoki was most known for his work in combat sports as a pro wrestler, promoter, and fighter, most notably his bout with Muhammad Ali. Inoki was the most important professional wrestler in the history of Japan. Now, I do kind of take issue with that, because I listened to Jim Cornette's podcast. Jim Cornette is the wrestling historian that I would take as the expert in this, and Jim Cornette would tell you that the most important professional wrestler in the history of Japan was Ricky Dozen. But Ricky Dozen was Antonio Inoki's trainer and mentor. That is going to be an important fact when we watch the end of Flair and Inoki here in just a second. Inoki was one of the most important professional wrestlers in the history of Japan, selling out countless arenas and stadiums from the 1970s and on. He was also the first Japanese wrestler to win the WWF Championship, though his reign is not currently recognized by the WWE, and was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2010. On June 26, 1976, Inoki fought Ali, perhaps the highest profile mixed rules bout ever. Inoki had a background in amateur wrestling and judo and trained under catch wrestler Karl Gotch, developing a mythology of fighting he called strong style, which is still practiced in Japan today. Ali, of course, was one of the top boxers in the world at the time and incredibly well known globally. Ali versus Inoki was a direct ancestor to what we know now as mixed martial arts, which has become a global sport led by the UFC, founded in 1993. The bout was one of the most watched fights of its generation. In addition to the sold-out crowd of more than 14,000 at the Nippon Budokan in Tokyo, it aired on closed circuit across the world. Shea Stadium in New York aired the bout on its big screen and drew a crowd of 32,000 with an undercard of pro wrestling and mixed rules matches. Ali versus Inoki ended in a draw, but Inoki spent most of the 15-round contest on his back, kicking at Ali's legs and landing those kicks more than 100 times. Ali took far more damage in the bout than Inoki did and sustained injuries to his legs. Boxing was by far the most popular combat sport at the time, especially in the United States, but Ali versus Inoki put the idea into many heads that maybe boxing was not the best style to win a more fluid, all-encompassing fight, a debate that raged decades before Ali and versus Inoki and years after until the dawn of the UFC. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pioneer Carlson Gracie, I've never heard him called Carlson. Carl Gracie once said Inoki was one of the best fighters he had seen. During the lead-up to his historic boxing match with Floyd Mayweather, UFC superstar Conor McGregor cited Ali versus Inoki several times as an influence on him with regards to the crossover bout with Mayweather. In a current combat sports landscape where it has become common for boxers to fight MMA fighters and pro wrestlers to fight YouTubers and so on and so forth, Ali versus Inoki was far ahead of its time. So there you can see, I don't know if he's trying to go for one of his kicks on the back of the leg, or if maybe he did this sweep move. I don't know if you'll see it in the part of the Ric Flair match we're getting ready to watch. But he had this move where he would like do a leg takedown, a scissor takedown. Inoki used his popularity gained from fighting Ali to become the most popular pro wrestler in the history of Japan. Also debatable, Rikidozan. He founded New Japan Pro Wrestling in 1972 and was the promotion's biggest star for more than a decade, having huge matches with the likes of Hulk Hogan, Dory Funk Jr., Big Van Vader, and Bruiser Brody. But it was also Inoki's vision to blend what became known as MMA and pro wrestling together. One of his students, Nobuhiko Takada, helped start the MMA promotion Pride Fighting Championships in 1997, which became very popular and was later purchased by the UFC. Inoki was at many Pride shows as a part of its introduction ceremonies and did a parachuted skydive from an airplane into Tokyo National Stadium in front of 90,000 people at Pride Shockwave 2002. The motherfucker would have been 60-something at that time. Or maybe like 59. I have learned so much from Mr. Inoki, Risen promoter and Pride founder Nobuyoku Sakabiara wrote in an Instagram post. The token spirit has been inherited to Risen from Pride. I really wish he could step into the Risen ring. I am devastated. May his soul rest in peace. He was also elected politician in Japanese government from 2013 to 2019. That was not his first foray into politics, though. Oh, shit. Aside from sports, Inoki was a major mover and shaker in the political world. He started his own political party, the Sports and Peace Party, and was elected into the Japanese House of Councilors in 1989. Inoki flew to Iraq in 1996 on a one-man diplomatic mission and negotiated with Saddam Hussein the release of 36 Japanese hostages. He was also an elected politician in Japanese government from 2013 to 2019 when he controversially advocated for continued diplomacy with North Korea. Inoki had long had relations with North Korea. His original pro wrestling trainer, Rikidozan, was of North Korean descent. Inoki helped put together a 2-day pro wrestling festival in the country in 1995, which drew 150,000 on the first day and 190,000 on the second day. Inoki defeated Ric Flair in the main event, the only time the two legends wrestled each other. And I'm sorry for the spoiler warning. I shouldn't have done that since fucking that's what we're getting ready to watch. But if you know anything about wrestling, you probably knew Ric Flair was taking the L to Antonio Inoki. Especially when I tell you the backstory. First of all, the thing that you have to know about this is that the North Koreans didn't know what the fuck wrestling was. Not only that, a lot of these people are probably seeing an American for the first times in their lives. And one of the very first Americans they ever lay eyes on is Ric fucking Flair. Man who is like 6'3", bleach blonde, came out wearing a purple sequined rhinestoned robe, yelling, "Woo!" So this is about probably 10, 11 minutes into the match. Antonio Inoki was revered by the fans in North Korea because, as we mentioned, Rikidozan was actually a North Korean. Rikidozan, the mentor of Antonio Inoki, was murdered by the Yakuza when it was found out that he was a North Korean and not actually Japanese. He had been hiding that he was a North Korean and became insanely popular as a professional wrestler. And the Yakuza murdered him. So this story ends up being mythology in North Korea, that Rikidozan actually confessed to being like North Korean and his pride for his country on his deathbed, which probably didn't actually happen. So these people who had no clue what wrestling was and didn't react to any other match that was on this card for 2 days were totally behind Antonio Inoki because he was trained by Ricky Dozen, who was a mythical legend in North Korean propaganda. So here is the finish of Antonio Inoki versus Ric Flair in North Korea from 1995.
The Nature Boy Ric Flair now.
Ric Flair going up to the top rope. If you're a wrestling fan, you know what this is.
Oh no, Flair knows he's in trouble here. Flair in a lot of trouble. Inoki tosses Flair.
This is a classic Ric Flair spot, getting thrown from the top rope.
A man who has survived matches with big
Look at that drop kick.
Fortunately for Ric Flair, Inoki came up
Took Flair's head off.
and the Nature Boy Ric Flair able to roll the shoulder.
Remember, Antonio Inoki is 53, and he just missed Flair's head by jumping too high for a drop kick.
Pinning attempt by Inoki.
Fatigue now a factor, and the dirtiest player in the game with a right hand of the solar plexus. And now
Yeah, usually Flair would have hit the dick,
Inoki pinned in the corner, delivers a right hand, but eats a right hand.
but I guess dirty tactics don't really when your crowd doesn't even know the rules of professional wrestling. It's not going to piss them off to break the rules and hit somebody in the dick.
Ric Flair with an uppercut to the midsection might have caught the solar plexus because Inoki's in trouble here.
Big slam by Flair plants him in the center.
Uh-oh, coming with that knee drop. Oh, fuck yeah. Oh, no, that gonna drop the elbow.
Elbow instead, right onto the neck of
Even Mike Tenay thought he was gonna drop the knee.
Inoki still fresh, able to roll the shoulder. Inoki trying to
For those of you who don't know, Ric Flair has an amazing knee drop, and he rolls through it. It's beautiful.
He is a defensive wrestler, and he's a defensive wrestler on the receiving end of some punishment from the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Now Flair showing some fatigue.
Flair with a back suplex, but he's
Both of them wore out.
pinfall attempt, and both men are on their backs.
I'm still probably gonna get WWE copyright and fucking me because of this, even with how little I'm playing of it.
But I think Mr. Inoki is at the resilience.
I don't think he had started doing the turnbuckle flip just yet, or he was starting to do it. Remember, this is right after he came out of retirement.
North Korea where Antonio Inoki
He didn't want to retire; it was all an angle.
factor here. Not making excuses for anybody, but anybody that's
It was like a title versus retirement match with Hulk Hogan.
That patented kick by Inoki, now up to the top.
Boom with that knee.
Inoki turn it on.
Amazing speed and resilience by Antonio Inoki.
Probably check fucking Flair for a concussion after that. Damn.
Jump back leg round kick right to the side of the head, and I do believe Ric Flair was out, and that was it.
So there you go, Antonio Inoki.
At all. He was going to be victorious. Although I think Antonio Inoki took a chance.
In Pyongyang, North Korea.
As Ric Flair, and knowing that, as you said, the dirtiest man in wrestling. I want to know what's going to happen here. Is he going to
This is the largest crowd ever to watch a wrestling match.
And again, not making any excuses for Ric Flair because this is not a guy that
However,
here in the United States are
no one was there willingly.
the reality of the situation, Mike. You're looking at a guy who, number one, had come off a layoff from October to the end of April.
Even the wrestlers, they agreed to it. Oh, even Flair's hot. Flair's hot. He wants more.
Sounds like excuses.
No, it's not excuses. It's a fact. The Nature Boy.
Get him, Flair. Ah, kick him in the balls. Come on. We want a low blow. Dirtiest player in the game.
Inoki was
Gonna get in his face. Classic Flair.
sure Rick knew at that given moment exactly how he was going to react. Of course, being surrounded by about 685 pounds of Japanese wrestlers would have a tendency to
Show of respect.
bad thoughts too.
Almost a stare down between the two right before the handshake.
You know, Mox, I didn't even think about that. It is amazing he didn't bleed all over the place.
After this match, he wanted a rematch and he wanted it in the United States. We'll see if it happens.
That can be arranged, I'm sure.
But once again, like what you like,
What if they call
if you've never seen a wrestling match before, having one with blood would probably fuck you up.
for my broadcast partner, a good friend and a man who, as I have said in the past, has his finger on the pulse of the international wrestling scene, Mr. Mike today. Kazuo Ishikawa, thank you for joining us, and it was certainly a pleasure to be in Tokyo and in Pyongyang, North Korea with you.
Oh, so I guess Eric Bischoff did the voiceover for this when he was in Tokyo or something. So, and hey, I'll link you if you want to watch the full match. I feel sorry for this dude's YouTube. I'm amazed the WWE hasn't come after him yet.